Google.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, everybody. Next up, we have our 2 blocks of short talks. We'll have 5 papers, 5 minutes each, followed by a Q&A session, then another 4 papers, followed by a Q&A session. Our first paper will be Soft Robots Learn to Crawl, Jointly Optimizing Design and Control with Sim-to-Real Transfer.
My name is Chip Schaff, and today I'll be telling you about how you can optimize the design of your soft robots. The end product of our work is a system that allows users to jointly optimize the physical bodies of soft robots and their controllers for a given task. We test this system by optimizing pneumatically actuated soft robots for a locomotion task. Our results show that our approach is able to discover novel and high-performing crawling robots within a highly accurate finite element simulation. In physical experiments, we fabricate the optimized design and transfer the learned controller from simulation to reality, and show that the optimized system outperforms a well-studied baseline by a large margin. The problem of optimizing design and control for soft robots is inherently challenging. One reason for this is that the simulation of deformable materials is hard. If you want to accurately model complex deformations, or the relationship between stress and strain, a large amount of compute is required, which generally renders learning-based methods infeasible. The second is that soft robots themselves are complicated. They have infinite degrees of freedom, allowing them to deform in complex ways, and they can be built from a large variety of materials and actuation strategies. This leads to a large potential search space and a tight coupling between design and control. Our contributions to this problem are twofold. First is an efficient RL-based co-optimization algorithm, and second is a technique to speed up finite element simulations across a large set of designs, allowing us to leverage highly accurate physics simulations. Our first contribution has 2 main components. The first is a design condition control policy, which provides fast evaluations to unseen designs. The second is a distribution of designs that maintains a belief over high-performing robots. These 2 components are intertwined, and that the control policy is trained to maximize expected return under this design distribution, and the design distribution is updated towards higher performing designs under the control policy. Continuing the optimization in this way, our approach converges around a locally optimal design and a control policy which is effectively fine-tuned for that design. With the goal of sim-to-real transfer in mind, we want to carry out this optimization within a highly accurate physics simulation. Finite element analysis provides the required accuracy, but at a large computational cost. For example, this simple quadruped scene runs 100 times slower than real time. This is way too slow for most reinforcement learning algorithms, which require millions of transitions to converge. Several approaches exist for speeding up finite element simulations. In this work, we consider the snapshot proper orthogonal decomposition method. This works by projecting the degrees of freedom of the robot into a low-dimensional subspace that well captures a set of common deformations. This can speed up finite element simulations by several orders of magnitude, but it requires a large upfront cost for every mesh. Naively applying this approach is then infeasible because it requires us to pay this cost for every new design we would want to simulate. Our solution to this is simple. First, we create a library of high-quality reduced order parts using the snapshot POD method. Then we can combine those parts in arbitrary ways to construct new designs. This allows us to quickly simulate large sets of designs while only having to perform a small set of model order reductions. In our experiments, we optimize pneumatically actuated soft robots for a crawling task. Our algorithm searches over where to place pneumatic legs around a central body, which pressure regulators to assign those legs to, and the control policy, which produces crawling gaits. Our results show that our approach is able to quickly converge around a small set of high-performing designs, and in physical experiments, we fabricate the top 5 performing designs and show that they are able to outperform a commonly studied baseline when transferred from simulation to reality. Thank you, If you're interested, please come see our poster this afternoon, and you can check out our website and code using the links below.
Next up, we have Moritz Roessler presenting end-to-end learning of hybrid inverse dynamic models for precise and compliant impedance control.
So hi, I'm Moritz. I'm going to present our joint work on hybrid inverse dynamic models for robot manipulator. So one of the main challenges of deploying robots in semi-structured environments is robot control. We need robots which are simultaneously precise and compliant in order to work with fragile objects in forceful interaction tasks. Traditional impedance controllers cannot solve this unless we get more accurate inverse dynamics models, which will be the topic of this talk. So the most common approach to learn the inverse dynamics of a robot manipulator are analytical rigid body dynamics models. They are derived from the recursive Newton-Euler algorithm and have relatively few parameters, but overall good accuracy in the state space. However, they are not precise enough to capture all of the effects which are non-rigid. Therefore, we need to augment our rigid body model with additional dynamic effects in order to get a more precise model. In this context, residual hybrid models are of major interest. By extending our trained rigid body dynamics model with a neural network function approximation, we can increase the accuracy of our overall model while maintaining the good analytical prior of our rigid body dynamics model. However, this approach still has two major flaws which we want to address in our work. First, the identification of the rigid body dynamics parameters is a constraint optimization problem, which has several linear matrix inequalities which we need to maintain. Therefore, it's not suited for end-to-end learning of our joint model. Second, the stateless neural network is also not able to capture partially observable and temporal dynamic effects from data, and thus cannot increase the overall accuracy perfectly, with the effects such as hysteresis. Therefore, in our work, we present our solution to those two problems called end-to-end straight recurrent residual hybrid models. We propose a new hybrid model architecture which consists of three main components. First, we have a fully physically consistent rigid body dynamics model, which we extend with a stateless Coulomb friction model with linear approximations for low velocities. And additionally, we use a recurrent LSTM, which has internal memory and is able to learn the residual dynamics efficiently from data. Our proposed hybrid model is now trained end-to-end in two steps. First, for our experiment, we collect a large data set consisting of 17.5 million data points derived from using trajectories derived for optimal experiment design. We collect all our data on a real robot at 1000 Hertz in our lab. Second, we propose the differentiable barycentric, an alternative formulation of the barycentric parameters, which can implicitly guarantee all conditions for fully physically consistency. This allows us to use unconstrained optimization. We are now able to jointly learn all of our hybrid model parameters end-to-end using stochastic gradient descent methods while still maintaining all of the conditions implicitly. To verify our new model architecture and our end-to-end learning, we conduct several experiments on offline torque prediction and on real robot motion tracking tasks. We deploy all our models at 1000 Hertz inside a torque-controlled robot manipulator and test it on several unseen movements with varying controller gains. In our experiments, we're able to show that our proposed hybrid model, as you can see here in green, is able to significantly increase the tracking accuracy of our robot manipulator in contrast to its baselines. Further, we're able to show that it's precise enough that we can even lower our controller gains from traditional stiff gains to compliant ones, while still maintaining a higher accuracy than our baseline models with a stiff controller. This shows that the residual LSTM is able to capture dynamic effects efficiently for data. It can be used for precise and compliant motion tracking. Our other experiments are focused on the end-to-end learning of our hybrid model, where we conduct several offline and real robot tracking experiments to benchmark it against the sequential learning on our real robot motion tracking tasks. We're able to show that end-to-end learning outperforms the sequential learning. So thank you. I'm happy to answer all of your questions at the poster.
Next up, we have Tara Burishaki presenting FuseBot, RF Visual Mechanical Search.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tara Burishaki. I'm a PhD student at MIT, and today I'm really excited to tell you about our robotic system. So when we normally think about robotic perception, we normally think about them using a camera. But sometimes we need them to do something that they cannot, manipulate something that they cannot see. For example, there is an item under a pile, and the robot needs to manipulate it and extract it. So in this talk, I'm going to tell you how we do it. And let me first show you a video. So here, there is a key under the pile, which is a hidden item that the robot is looking for. The robot has a camera, but its line of sight is blocked to the item. Here you can see in the camera view that the item is not visible. Our system is able to locate the key and then purposefully declutter its environment so that it can extract the item of interest. And then when it gets it and retrieve it, it can declare task completion. So in this talk, I'm going to tell you about FuseBot, which is a robotic system for RF visual mechanical search, and it enables efficient retrieval of items in line of sight, cluttered scenarios, and fully occluded scenes. And it achieves 95% success rate in these retrieval tasks. So how does FuseBot work? It uses RFID tags, such as this one in my hand, and these are batteryless UHF RFID tags that are 3 cents. And the way it works is there is an antenna that sends a wireless signal toward the tag, and the tag responds back with its unique identifier. There has been works that shows we can locate a tag using this response with centimeter-level accuracy. So our system sends wireless signals from different locations, and then it enables it to see through the pile and find an RFID tag item to manipulate it and grasp it. But now, the question is, what if our item does not have any RFID? How does FuseBot go and grasp it? So our system uses RF visual mapping in order to identify what is the probability our item is in each section of the pile. So for example, here is the pile structure in front of the robot, and then these areas are invisible to the robot because they're under the surface of the pile, and it's not visible to the camera. So our system creates an uncertainty model using the voxel grid. These red dots are like high values in our voxel grid, but these are high because our camera cannot see them. But remember, we also have a radio frequency perception. So we have RFID tags here, and then robot can locate them with good accuracy. And then it knows that, okay, here is the toy, and here is a mug, and here is the tape that I was looking for. So it fuses them into the lower, to this uncertainty model, and this area will have lower uncertainty because we exactly know what is there, and what is their shape, and what is their size. So now we have a better understanding of what we know and we don't know. So then, here is the item we're looking for. We create a convolutional kernel based on its dimension, and then we convolve it with this uncertainty model, and it gives us an occupancy distribution. So here, the red areas shows there's a high probability that our item is there, and blue areas shows that there is a lower probability that our item is there. And this is because, like here, there is an RFID tag item, so we cannot be exactly at the same location. So now we have created an occupancy distribution of where our item of interest is. Now the question is, how do we manipulate this pile to extract it? So we use RF visual extraction policy, which tries to find the item by removing the item that maximizes our information gain. So here is a pile structure, and we segment the items that are on the surface of the pile to understand what are our objects. And then we also have an occupancy distribution from our previous slide. So the robot fuses this segmentation and occupancy distribution to give each of the items on the surface of the pile a mask score. And then it uses the mask that maximizes this information gain if we remove that item. And then, so after it chooses the best mask, the robot goes and tries to grasp this item that has this mask. And it keeps repeating it until it sees the item of interest and can remove it, and it successfully removes it. So we implemented this system in an end-to-end system, and we use a UR5 robot, as you can see here, and we have a camera, the Invariance camera on our wrist, and a locked periodic antenna on a 2-finger gripper. And these antennas are connected towards some wires to a Blade RF software-defined radio, and we have evaluated our system also and compared it to the state-of-the-art vision-based system like X-ray. And X-ray needed a median of 5 actions to find an object, but FuseBot needed 3 actions in order to find it when the item was RFID tagged, and only 2 actions to find the item when it was not RFID tagged. So in this talk, I showed you how FuseBot can efficiently retrieve any item in fully occluded scenarios with 95% success rate. And I'm really happy to answer your question during our poster session. Thank you.
Next up, we have Rohan presenting learning interpretable high-performing policies for autonomous driving.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohan, and today I'll be presenting our work on learning interpretable high-performing policies for continuous control. So say we have an autonomous vehicle or AV operating in a safety-critical domain such as driving around human drivers. This AV is controlled via a decision-making function that receives observations and outputs actions. At the end of the pipeline, we have human operators that would like to receive information about the decision process and could want to calibrate the behavior and choose whether to deploy such a policy. In prior works, reinforcement learning with black box models has been used to produce such policies. However, this does not permit inspection by human operators, and it is difficult to verify such a model. It is instead better to utilize white box approaches that permit insight into the decision-making model. Specifically, interpretable models, i.e. those that provide a transparent global representation of a policy's behavior, can be used to support situational awareness, build trust, and ensure safety. This insight is required in safety-critical and legally regulated domains. However, the ability to optimize sparse logical models, such as decision trees, has been noted by Rudin et al. As one of 10 grand challenges in interpretable machine learning. Our work builds upon differentiable decision trees, or DDTs. DDTs contain decision nodes and leaf nodes. Inside each decision node is a splitting rule, and a sigmoid with steepness alpha is applied to output the probability of a node being true. Leaf nodes contain a distribution over policy actions. We can then compute branch probabilities and multiply these by the respective leaf nodes to produce a final probability distribution over actions. In prior work, DDTs have been trained via supervised learning by Suarez and Lutzko and Pelagia et al., and via reinforcement learning by Silva et al. For discrete action spaces. However, DDT models have been unable to handle continuous action spaces required for domains like autonomous driving. Once parameters have been inferred, prior work utilized a post-hoc crispification technique to produce an interpretable model. This consisted of 3 operations. First, ensuring that each decision node is a function of only one feature. Second, ensuring each decision node outputs Boolean decisions. And lastly, ensuring that each leaf node outputs a single action. While these steps successfully generated an interpretable model, the resultant model was inconsistent with the trained model, as each argmax operation resulted in model differences that can degrade performance. As such, the resultant interpretable model is not representative of the model learned via RL. To resolve this inconsistency issue, we proposed interpretable continuous control trees, or ICCTs. Here we start with a set of input features X. These are passed into a decision node, and we utilize a differentiable crispification mechanism to translate this node into an interpretable node while maintaining gradients. Our differentiable crispification mechanism allows us to directly optimize over sparse decision tree-like representations, ensuring that the output of the interpretable tree is the exact same output as the differentiable model. As the output of nodes are now Boolean, we can trace along a single branch until arrival at a leaf node, which produces a continuous output, in this case, a throttle value for a lunar lander engine. We extend DDTs to continuous action spaces by maintaining linear controllers at the leaves with variable sparsity, going from a simple tree with scalar leaves to a multivariate linear controller. As such, we're able to learn interpretable models that are compatible with models trained via reinforcement learning. To evaluate our ICCTs, we test across 6 domains. Several are common continuous control problems, such as inverted pendulum and lunar lander, while others are autonomous driving domains. In this table, we show several models trained via soft actor critic across the respective domains. In most domains, we see that ICCTs is the highest performing method. In some domains, such as figure 8, we see that we perform a bit worse than an MLP, but maintain much fewer parameters, only requiring a 16-leaf tree with 125 parameters. It should also be noted that the CDDT, an extension of prior work's DDT methodology to continuous domain, greatly suffers in performance when translated to an interpretable model via post-hoc crucifixion. In conclusion, we present a framework for interpretable reinforcement learning in continuous action spaces, addressing one of the grand challenges in interpretable machine learning by providing a technique for direct optimization of sparse logical models. In current work, we are working with 4 to transition this for interpretable AV control. With that, I'd like to thank my amazing collaborators, and please do check out our paper. Thank you.
Next up, we have Yunho Kim presenting Learning Forward Dynamics Model and Informed Trajectory Sampler for Safe Quadruped Navigation.
Hello. In this work, we present our learning-based local planner that enables safe autonomous quadruped robot navigation in geometrically complex environments. Quadruped robots have great potential in life when they're used with autonomous navigation. However, lots of environments where quadruped robots can be deployed, such as office or subterranean regions, have dense obstacles and make safe navigation difficult. In this work, we are interested in autonomous point-goal navigation in geometrically complex environments. 2D line scan LiDAR was used for the exteroceptive sensor. The state-of-the-art autonomous navigation framework of mobile robots works as a hierarchical system consisting of 4 modules: mapper, global planner, local planner, and a velocity command tracking controller. Local planner that generates velocity command plans to track the coarsely planned path from the global planner is crucial for safe navigation, especially in geometrically complex and narrow environments. In these environments, the local planner should be able to generate long horizon velocity command plans in short time while considering the robot's physical constraints and the performance characteristics of the velocity command tracking controller. Most widely used local planner in previous work is the waypoint-based method that repeats waypoint selection and command generation with PD controller. However, these methods do not guarantee safety while moving toward that point. Recently, there were some learning-based approaches, but the results are limited to single-step planning or not built for global path tracking. In this paper, we present a learning-based local planner that enables safe navigation even in geometrically complex environments. The planner is composed of 3 modules: a forward dynamics model, an online sampling-based model predictive controller, and an informed trajectory sampler. Forward dynamics model is a deep neural network that predicts future base coordinates and collision probabilities given the current LiDAR observation and the future velocity command trajectories. The model is trained with a self-supervised learning framework that repeats random environment generation, data collection, and model training. To generate velocity command plans to track the planned path from the global planner, sampling-based MPC was used. The algorithm repeats command sampling, reward computation, optimization, and first-step command execution. Rewards are computed using the predicted outputs from the forward dynamics model and consists of 2 terms: path similarity term with the global path and the path safety term. Although the local planner using only the forward dynamics model and sampling-based MPC showed decent performance in lots of environments, it frequently failed to find safe command solution in environments with dense obstacles. This was due to the curse of dimensionality in long horizon planning scenarios. To solve this, we decided to learn the command sampling distribution that can generate paths close to the global path and provide rich samples for the optimization. Informed Trajectory Sampler is a deep neural network trained for this purpose. It takes as input waypoints and current LiDAR observation and outputs velocity command trajectories to track the given waypoints. It is modeled with a conditional variational autoencoder, a type of conditional generative model. As shown in the below figure, generated sampled command trajectories from the informed trajectory sampler results path close to the global path shown in yellow. Now we will summarize the proposed learning-based local planner. First, velocity command trajectories are sampled from both random sampler and informed trajectory sampler. Then, forward dynamics model is used to predict the future outcomes of the sampled velocity command trajectories and compute rewards. Based on the rewards, the velocity command trajectory is optimized and executed in MPC fashion until the goal is reached. In experiments in diverse environments, the proposed learning-based local planner showed higher success rate with large gap compared to the widely used waypoint-based method, especially in environments with denser obstacles. To show the importance of the learned forward dynamics model, we compared with the method that runs forward simulation analytically with an approximated kinematic model. Our method, using learned forward dynamics model, showed higher success rate due to lower coordinate prediction error and lower computation time for the forward simulation. The method, using both the random sampler and informed trajectory sampler, showed the best performance compared to the method using only one of them. It was because random sampler can generate diverse samples for exploration, while informed trajectory sampler can provide rich samples and guide toward a precise solution. Furthermore, our proposed local planner can reactively handle unexpected obstacles on the global path and can also be extended to semi-autonomous tasks with minimal changes. If you are more interested in our work, visit our project page and poster session. Thank you.
Great. Let's invite our speakers to come up for question answering. I have a question for Charles, actually, on co-optimization of design and control. So, great talk. And one question is that since you're treating the design distribution as a categorical one, does the number of designs need to stay fixed over time? And is there do you think there are opportunities to expand that dynamically? I think the audio for Zoom is off.
Can you hear me?
Try again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So in this work, we do keep the number of designs fixed, but you can definitely expand upon that. You could dynamically add designs throughout training. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And you can also use other representations of the design distribution if you so choose.
Cool, thanks. All right, we have a question here.
Hi, I have a question about the interpretable decision trees work. If I have domain knowledge about information I want to have on the structure of the resulting decision tree, what would be the best way to incorporate that kind of knowledge, like whether into the initialization process of the initial tree or during the optimization process?
Yeah, so you can impose structure by initializing it to a certain depth. For example, like you could specify an 8-leaf tree. In current work, we're extending it so you could specify something like an important feature that you would like to see in the tree. So you can, and then you can also specify the sparsity of the linear controllers. So controlling it to be, you know, a multivariate linear controller with 3 dimensions versus 2 dimensions, things like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next question on the other side.
Thanks. I have a question about FuseBot. I was wondering whether it might be interesting to also reason about the dynamics. If you take an object from the top of the pile, it probably won't change it much. But if you grasp something from the bottom, it might go rump.
So that is actually being considered for in the mask scoring. So it also, the score of the mask is also dependent on the height of the object on the pile. So normally we prefer to remove something on top of the pile because it then the possibility of something being visible to the robot after we remove it increases. So that's considered in the mask score.
Thanks.
There's another question for FuseBot. I think I understood this correctly, but you said that picking out tagged objects took 3 motions on average, and picking out untagged ones took 2 motions. So that implies that it's easier to pick out untagged. Sorry, it's easier to pick out untagged ones, which seems counterintuitive. Why is that?
So the thing is that the tagged environment, the experiments for the tagged, they're not exactly the same as the untagged. But the experiments for X-ray was exactly the same as the experiments for the untagged objects. So they were run on exactly the same scenarios. But the tagged objects, they were different objects. That's why they were easier, they were harder to extract. Normally, most of them was because we were trying to grasp, and then it failed to grasp, not failed to find it.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. Let's thank our speakers once more. All right, so our next talk will be presented by Xian Xu on MetaValue learning for fast policy-centric optimal motion planning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Xian Xu from Penn State University. Today I will present a paper, MetaValue learning for fast policy-centric optimal motion planning. Policy-centric optimal motion planning is to find a feedback controller which steers the robot to reach the goal region with minimal cost. The robot is governed by a nonlinear dynamics, and the cost is divided as infinite integral of the cost functional. A planning query is corresponding to the configurations of the goal region and obstacles, such as locations and numbers of obstacles. It is characterized by the cost functional L. Once a new query is reviewed, the robot needs to quickly synthesize an optimal feedback controller. However, the problem is challenging in general. On one hand, the robot operates in real time and computation time is limited. On the other hand, computing this kind of optimal global feedback controller is time consuming. In this paper, we use machine learning to address this issue. Machine learning is to learn amount of knowledge for distribution of tasks, such that a faster learn step based on the knowledge leads to a goal adaptation to a new task. In this paper, we extend applications of the machine learning to fast policy-centric motion planning with nonlinear robot dynamics in continuous time, state, and control domains. Suppose motion planning queries follow a distribution. First, we sample a set of queries from a distribution. For each query, we use the set value analysis to discretize the time state control of the robot dynamics and approximate the optimal value functions on a discretized state grid. Second, the obtained multi-value functions are used to train a microcontroller, which is parameterized by a neural network. Third, the microcontroller is stepped to a new query when the new query is reviewed. The first 2 steps are done offline, for example, in hours and time consuming. The adaptation is done in real time, for example, in few seconds. Let's see how to train the microcontroller. First, we evaluate the neural network controller by a sum of 2 losses. The first loss is the distance between the output of neural network and the optimal value functions on a discretized set value dynamics. This term enforces the neural network to approximate the discretized optical controller, which is solved offline. The second loss is the residue of the HGB equation, which is the sufficient and necessary condition of the optical controller. This loss enforces the neural network to approximate the solution of the HGB equation, which guarantees it is optimal. So next, we train the microcontroller by minimizing the expected loss of depth controllers, which are updated from the microcontroller by one-step graded descent to a specific query. Therefore, the microcontroller is the best candidate to adapt to queries quickly and with small data. After the microcontroller is trained, it is used to adapt it to a new query. First, we need new data for the new query. For each initial state, the concept-free method solves the BVPs to get the object trajectory and also returns object values and object controls along the trajectory. It continuously solves the BVPs for different initial states, sample the object values and object controls along the trajectory, and add them to the data pool. And each time the data pool is updated, we also updated the parameter of the controller by graded descent on the new data pool. In the experiment, we consider 4 queries with different goal region and different configurations of the obstacles. From the left side figure, we can see the controller can steer the robot to reach the goal region from any initial state. On the right-hand side, the figure shows the average cost as the computation time increases. It is shown our method can compute a feasible controller in about 2 seconds and also returns a solution which is close to the optimal controller in about 8 seconds. This is about 10 times faster than other policy-centric methods. So this is my presentation. Thanks for attention.
Next up, we have Yanlai Yang presenting Bridge Data, boosting generalization of robotic skills with cross-domain datasets.
Hi, everyone. We present Bridge Data, boosting generalization of robotic skills with cross-domain datasets. The prevailing paradigm of robot learning is to train a single task in a single environment and throw away the data afterwards. If we instead collect all this data and effectively reuse it, we could significantly boost generalization. So how can we enable robot learning researchers to use past data? In computer vision, large reusable datasets like ImageNet provide good initialization on fine-tuning for other tasks. But robotic datasets tend to be lab and task-specific. Therefore, we propose to gather a large multi-task and multi-domain dataset, which we call the bridge dataset, such as someone could use the dataset to boost performance of their own task in their own scene. To this end, we collected a large dataset of a robot performing a wide variety of kitchen tasks in many different toy kitchen domains. We call this the bridge dataset since it allows us to bridge the gap between tasks and domains. We focus on kitchen-themed tasks, as these provide a large repertoire of behavior and use a low-cost WidowX robot arm to maximize accessibility. Our dataset contains 7,200 human demonstrations from 71 tasks across 10 different toy kitchen environments. In this presentation, we focus on 2 different problem settings. One is generalizing a task that exists in the prior data to a new target domain where we only have some data for other tasks. We call this zero-shot transfer with target support. We hypothesize that by leveraging the bridge dataset, some tasks can be zero-shot transferred to the unseen target domain. The second one is learning a new task that is not in the prior data in a new target domain. We hypothesize that we can use the bridge dataset to boost generalization of new tasks in new target domains. To test these hypotheses, we consider the multitask imitation learning setting. We will train a neural network end-to-end on both the bridge and a small amount of target data to infer the robot actions from camera images and a one-hot task encoding. Next, we present the results. In the first scenario, we test whether we can transfer tasks in the bridge data to a target domain where we only have a small amount of target data on other tasks. We compare the success rates of policies trained on bridge data only, which we call direct transfer, with policies jointly trained on both bridge and target data. We can see that the success rates are significantly higher when using joint training compared to direct transfer. In this example, we run a multitask behavioral cloning policy that was trained exclusively on bridge data. The policy fails to generalize to the unseen target domain. With joint training on both bridge and target data, the policy is able to successfully execute the task, which has only been demonstrated on other domains in bridge data to this new target domain. In the second scenario, we test whether we can use bridge data to boost generalization for a new task demonstrated in the unseen target domain. We compare performance of policies trained only on single task target domain data with joint training on both bridge and target data across 7 different tasks. We confirm the hypothesis that joint training on bridge data is crucial for the generalization capability of the policies, leading to a more than 2x performance gain on average compared to only training on single task target domain data. Here, we attempt to learn the wipe plate with sponge task in a new real kitchen environment with only 50 demonstrations. A policy trained only on the target domain exhibits poor generalization and fails in most configurations. With joint training, the policy is able to reliably complete the task, even though the sponge object was never seen in bridge data. To summarize, we showed that a multitask, multi-domain bridge dataset can boost policy generalization of new tasks in new domains. Jointly training the bridge and target data allows transferring other tasks to the target domain in zero shot. The dataset and the code is open source. Please visit our website and poster for more information. Thanks.
Next up, we have Takuma Yoneda presenting invariance through latent alignment, and this is remote.
Invariant through latent alignment. I'm Takuma Yoneda. This is a joint work with Ga Yang, Matthew Walter, and Bradley Study. When we take a learning-based approach to robotics, it is common to train an agent in a local simulator and deploy it in the real robot. It is often the case that the agent works well in the source domain it is trained on, but not so much in an unseen target domain. This is because there is a distribution shift between the domains. In a sim-to-real setting, this can be caused by factors like these. So how do we solve this distribution shift? A typical approach is data augmentation. As you can see, the discrepancy between the domains causes distributions to mismatch. Data augmentation expands the support of training distribution with synthesized data, hoping to cover the test distribution. However, as we don't know what a test distribution looks like during training, it is often impossible to sufficiently cover the test distribution by this scheme. On the other hand, adaptation modifies the projection from input space to the latent space so that the distributions in latent space will look similar. This approach has a potential to work with largely deviated test scenarios. Here's the problem setting we consider. There is a policy that works well in source domain, but it doesn't work well in target domain. We want to perform adaptation on this policy so that it works well on target domain. We have access to trajectories in both domains. We assume that trajectories are not paired, meaning that there's no corresponding frames. And that reward is not available in target domain. These trajectories don't need to be expert trajectories. Indeed, in our experiments, we use random trajectories. Now, let me describe the method we propose, invariant through latent alignment. As a preparation step, we first deploy a random policy in a source domain and collect random trajectories. For each frame of the trajectories, we encode it and store the latent transitions to a buffer. This encoder is a part of the pre-trained policy. After storing latents, we move to adaptation step. First, we sample a latent from the source buffer, and in the same way, we encode a frame from a random trajectory in a target domain. Then we jointly train a discriminator that takes a latent either from source or target. This adversarial adaptation scheme encourages the encoder to produce target latent that is indistinguishable from the source latent. In addition to this, we further guide its adaptation via a forward and inverse dynamics model pre-trained in source domain, which we call dynamics consistency. In experiments, we have evaluated on 3 types of distractions in DeepMind control suite domains: color, background, and camera pose distractions. We also varied intensities of the distractions to see how that affects the performance. Comparing with various baselines on the performance before and after the adaptation, we could see that our method helps preventing the performance drop against distraction intensities. We also experimented on a simple real setting on a reach task. Simulation is on fetch robot, and real is set up with Euro5 and a table with distracting texture. In this experiment, we could again show the effectiveness of our approach. Thank you for your attention.
Our last talk for this block is Correcting Robot Plans with Natural Language Feedback, presented by Pratyusha Sharma.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be talking about our work on how natural language can be used as a tool for correcting and updating a robot's behavior at test time. Consider a robot that knows how to scoop ice cream. While most of the time the robot might give you a nice scoop of ice cream, it might fail at times due to changing environmental factors. For example, what if the brick of ice cream is harder than usual, or if the container is slippery, or both? The robot may fail because of not applying enough pressure while scooping or not holding the container tightly enough. What if the user wants chocolate chips, which are only scattered to the extreme right of the bucket? In all of these cases, how might one update the robot's behavior to changing conditions or new incoming user preferences? In fact, such situations might arise in the lab too, where the robot might go dangerously close to fragile objects while performing a task. Concretely, a good planner can fail to complete tasks or respect constraints due to distribution shifts, modified user preferences, or planner failure. So what does it take to fix all these things today? Typically, an engineer has to go back into the code and rewrite the cost function that has been specified by hand. And this isn't feasible for ordinary users. When people work together to perform complex tasks, we have a much better tool for modifying plans on the fly: language. Language is a concise and descriptive system that allows us to index a wide set of factors of variation. It also allows referring to a range of abstract concepts that may require several demonstrations to convey otherwise. And this talk is going to be about bringing this ability to robot systems and use language to correct, constrain, and modify plans at test time. There's been a lot of great prior work on fixing robot behaviors with corrective feedback of various kinds, like a joystick or kinesthetic demonstration. There's also been work on using language to provide feedback to policies, but past work has focused on using language corrections as the new goal specification. Here, we are instead going to develop techniques that let us change goals, but also selectively add constraints or modify select attributes of existing goals. So how do we do this? A robot's objective is a composition of several costs. For lots of motion planning tasks, plans come from running a planning algorithm like RRT on a cost map that looks like this. Of course, costs can operate in more complex spaces. We can put costs on velocity rather than position or vary them in time as well as space. The cost function can be composed of various terms such as goal-reaching costs, collision avoidance costs, and so on. And a lot of these are task agnostic and be written as other costs. In addition to these costs, we introduce a residual cost term called the feedback cost. We want to be able to use the feedback cost to both add constraints but also change goals, and we do this via a simple switching mechanism where the goal cost is turned off only if it is predicted that the feedback given is associated with a change in goal. Therefore, both the switching and the residual feedback cost is what we learn. So a natural way to use language is to modify planning behavior by mapping natural language strings to cost functions, and the function additionally conditions on the robot and environmental state. We train a neural network to map these inputs to the residual cost map, and this cost is then added to the remaining robot costs, and the planners used to roll out the trajectory. To train the feedback cost estimation network, we procedurally generate diverse environments, and the natural language instructions are generated by templating sentences with different interesting linguistic variation, and we train a single model across all these different expression types. We test on held-out virtual environments and tabletop setting in the real world with unseen language instructions, objects, cluttered scenes, and object poses. In action, it looks something like this. The language correction model conditions on the initial state of the robot and environment and instruction and generates a cost map. This cost map, in combination with the robot's other costs, is then used by the planner to roll out a trajectory. To connect this back to the early example, this now allows us to on-the-fly update a robot's behavior to avoid fragile objects and glasses. So here are some results. So language feedback allows the application of a single correction to multiple environment types at once. This is in contrast to how correcting via actions allows making fixes one data point at a time. It allows the specification of abstract feedback types, such as asking the robot to stay away from the box of Cheez-Its. It allows controlling a variety of features, such as speed, position, etc., on the way to accomplish the task. And finally, it allows composing multiple natural language feedback at once, such as asking the robot to stay away from the box of Cheez-Its while also going slower. Okay, so in conclusion, we propose a new method for correcting robot plans from natural language feedback by learning a language parameterized additive cost term. And this lets us correct, constrain, and modify planner behaviors at test time. Thank you, and if you're interested, please check out our poster this afternoon.
Great, let's have our speakers come up for the Q&A session. Looks like we have a question on that side of the room.
Hi, I have a question for the second paper, the bridge data. So I wonder when you do the new task, how does it work with the one-hot encoding with the task? Because I saw that you have a one-hot encoding for the task to go into the network, right? So for a new task, how does that work?
Since we are joint training on both bridge data and the new task, so we can just add another task ID for that specific task that is not in the bridge data.
I see. So the number of source tasks cannot be like, for example, you have a one-hot vector for 32, so you cannot go beyond. Like, for example, you cannot have 32 source tasks in order to transfer, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
We have another question on that side.
Yeah, hi. I have a question for the talk Invariance through Latent alignment. Great talk. I was curious how, what in your loss ensures that the objects with the same pose but different backgrounds map to the same point in the latent space?
I think I couldn't partially hear the question. Was the question what makes sure the same pose with different background projects to the same point?
The same point in latent space. Yep, exactly.
So, yeah, if we only do the adversarial adaptation, there's no guarantee in a sense. But we have, in addition to that, we have this forward in inverse dynamics. which is pre-trained in source domain. So that kind of encourages to retain the state action pair in a local space of the latent. So that I can't say guarantees, but that encourages to have the consistency.
Great, thanks.
We have time for one more question. We'll take it from that side.
Okay, actually, my question is following the previous question. And so in the latent alignment, do you have any particular consideration for the structure of the latent code? Or, yeah, how do you represent the latent code?
Excuse me. So the trick is we have access to a pre-trained model, which is pre-trained in a source domain. And we assume that pre-trained policy consists of, and the policy part. The policy part conditions on the latent, which is the output of the encoder. And we are essentially adapting the encoder part. So the latent is given by the pre-trained encoder.
Okay, so do you have any particular consideration for the encoder structure?
I'm sorry, conservation?
The structure of the encoder. You mean the latent code is generated from the encoder. And do you have any consideration for the design of the encoder?
Oh, so encoder is just a simple CNN. So we didn't put any weird stuff in the encoder.
Okay, thanks.
Was that the question? Yeah.
All right, let's thank our speakers.